Oh, right. Well, I think we're live, Aaron.
Nice.
All right. Hello, everybody. I see we've got about 70 odd people in the room at the moment. So just as a quick introduction for everybody that's early and here already, and we're going to wait a couple of minutes for everybody to join in on the call. In the meantime, however, I'd love for everybody just to type in the chat, say hello, introduce yourself. Where are you from? What would you like to get out of this conversation? We're going to be doing a lot of interactive conversations here, so I'd love to speak to you all. And in the meantime, we'll wait for some people to get in.
Cool.
How have you been, Aaron?
Audit time. I'm being audited. So yeah, annoying.
How long does it take you to go through this process?
So we started mid-March, and hopefully we should be signing in the next 4 weeks.
Okay.
But this is around about the time now when we're giving over annual accounts and other statements, which they're going to go through a fine-tooth comb and then ask really annoying questions. So yeah, bracing myself for that.
It sounds like the tax season in the US. So I've obviously just moved to San Francisco and I'm doing the US taxes for the first time, and it sounds like a painful experience similar to that.
Yeah, and plus because we're doing it over Zoom, right? We're doing it remotely, so it's not like they can annoy you in person. They can be extra annoying over email and Slack. And I'm being pretty cruel to them. But to be fair, I've been working with that BDO, who are auditors. I've worked with BDO for my whole accountancy career because there are auditors at the VC firm that I qualified in.
Okay.
So
you got a good band of experience. Well, let's see if we've got any auditors in the chat. I don't know. Maybe we've got mainly just internal finance teams. But let's say hello to a few people here. So, hey, Yannick from Toronto. Okay, so we've got a real international side: France, Germany, Toronto. Hey, Lisa from Berlin. Laurie in Germany. Sonia in Paris. How's it going? It's been a while since I've been in Paris. I missed that place. Jadesh, London. How's it going? Nick also from London. Okay.
I think I saw Nick from Farewell. Good guy.
There we go. Some familiar faces. I saw the registrant list, so there's a lot of familiar faces coming in today. Hey, David from Berlin. Louisa from Stuttgart. All right. Awesome. Very cool. So when everyone's introduced themselves, feel free to put it in your thoughts around what questions you have. We're gonna introduce a bit more of the conversation in just a moment, but put all your questions, and we're gonna go through them throughout the conversation as opposed to just answering everything at the end. So it's going to be really interactive. We really want to speak with all of you wonderful people. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So just for everybody who's not been to a CFO Connect event or has never heard of CFO Connect, we'll just give a brief introduction first. CFO Connect is a community that I think now we've grown to over 5,000 people worldwide, which is absolutely crazy. Considering, Aaron, when we met, we were just saying offline before we jumped on stage. When we met, you were at one of our very, very first events with about 4 or 5 people. So you're one of the OGs of CFO Connect.
Glad to be an OG of something.
Oh, that's awesome. It's been a great journey. CFO Connect, so we have a few different ways that this community interacts with one another. So we do lots of events like these conversations where we have guest speakers, obviously like Aaron. We're going to talk about very specific topics. We also have a private Slack channel where people can meet everyone else. So if you're implementing a new tool or trying to hire someone or learn from someone who's been down the path that you're already walking, it's a great place to meet. And we have lots of other free resources as well as a podcast called CFO Yeah. So if you've not ever heard of us before, thank you very much for joining. I would love to see you more and more in the community going forward. A bit of background, as you can see, CFO Connect is powered by Spendesk. Spendesk is a the go-to manage spend management solution for modern finance teams. I am tongue-tied this morning, which is fantastic. So I'm glad that you're speaking today, Aaron, and not me. So Spendesk is the go-to spend management solution for modern finance teams. For anyone who's not heard of Spendesk, effectively, Spendesk enables you to empower employees with access to payment methods in the workplace, but really putting control and visibility in the hands of finance teams, automating things like receipt collection, GL coding, and all of those month-end reconciliations to make your lives easier and help you focus on more strategic tasks. So with that being said, let's get on with the conversation. So today we're going to be talking about tools with Aaron Townsend. Aaron is the head of finance at Habito. We've known each other for a number of years now, and I'm very excited to be chatting with you today. I'm going to hand the mic over to yourself and let you introduce yourself a bit more and take it away, Aaron.
Cool, thanks, Alfie. Yeah, so as Alfie said, I'm the head of finance at Habito. I kind of started my career in VC, so that's where I qualified. So it's probably why I have I managed to do my ACA without being an auditor. So it's probably why I have I'm able to badmouth auditors quite frequently. So I was at VC for 8 years, and then I joined Habito as their first finance hire and built out their finance function. And it was about 5 or 6 of us now with a CFO. Started out as FC, now head of finance, and Habito's changed quite a lot. It's grown. I think now we're just over 150 odd people. I think when I joined, we were just over 70. I think revenues have probably 10x since I've been there. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff.
For those who don't know Habito, Aaron, do you want to give a quick overview as to who Habito is and what you guys do? That's
a very good point. I just naturally assume everyone's going to know about Habito and how great we are. So Habito is a online mortgage broker and lender. So in the UK, people tend to get their mortgages not necessarily just through the big high street banks or big lenders. About 80% of people in the UK get their mortgages through what's known as brokers, who act on behalf of lenders or smaller lenders as well. And so we are known as independent brokers. So we deal with over 90 plus lenders, and you can do that online through our website, through our online chat, speaking directly to our what we call mortgage experts, or over the phone if you prefer. In 2018, we were the first broker to become a lender as well. So we partner with an institutional investor, and we developed our own buy-to-let products, which we'll go into. And then last month, we also developed the UK's first long-term fixed mortgages. So you can fix your mortgage up to 40 years. And I'll say to Alfie offline, very normal in the US, but in the UK, it's never been done before. And so now we are, a broker and a lender. So we've gone from one revenue line to now potentially 4 revenue lines, which we're going to launch another business unit next month, actually. So yeah. And we'll talk about, as we get into the tool stack, why that's important in terms of the tools that I've used now and why I've had to do certain things.
That's awesome. And you've also got some of the coolest tube ads that I've ever seen.
Yeah, we have a pretty dope CMO, Abba, and so yeah, she's very, very creative.
Awesome. So let me go on to the next slide, and we'll take it away. So
cool. So I think the first thing that I'm probably most obvious I'm going to talk about is probably Netsuite, which is probably obvious. But so before, I should probably explain that a little. So when I started Habito, we were using Xero, and I love Xero. I think it's really good. I came from using Sage, which was really rubbish, and so using Xero was a bit of a breath of fresh air. But as I spoke about earlier, we knew that we wanted to launch this new lending product. I didn't know how big it would be, where it would go. But I knew that that kind of capital markets element of the business is going to complicate things a bit more. And also we were growing, we wanted more granularity, we wanted a bit more control, we wanted it to kind of integrate with a few things. And so it meant I had two kind of decisions. I could either wait a year and let buy to let mortgage products develop and do the integration then, or I could do it in a few months' time when our P&L, our balance sheet, our kind of trial balance is very simple, our business model is very simple, and we have a bit more time to kind of make sure that it's kind of implemented correctly. There's not a real rush, and it could be done fairly accurately. So I took some advice. I've got spoke to a few people that I know in the ecosystem, looked at MS Dynamics, looked at Access, looked at Sage as well, and I looked at Oracle was too big, and I looked at Netsuite, had them all around, and Netsuite kind of just looked like it was the right product for us. What I liked about it was the fact that it was highly, you could pretty much integrate with anything that you want, as long as you're kind of either have the right tools or you're kind of willing to pay for it, I guess. And also it kind of it gave me that granularity as well. And when I compared it to, so when I was in my other business, Access, we use Access Dimensions. So I kind of liked some of the functionality of MS of kind of Access Dimensions, but what I liked about NetSuite was way more updated. The UI is not as intuitive as Zero, but once you kind of get over that, then it works pretty well. So kind of what I did with that is, again, I took advice from a particular CFO who had kind of come into a business where they'd implemented NetSuite badly. She kind of gave me very important pointers. So one of the first things was, do not use NetSuite's implementation team, because they're just twice the cost of everyone else, and make sure you get a contractor who's going to work on your behalf and who's going to help you with the implementation. So I did those two things. I used a third party which was recommended from NetSuite, and you can do that if you're ever in the process of implementing NetSuite. You can speak to your sales rep. They have a list of NetSuite Platinum partners that they work with, and they will be half the price normally of NetSuite implementation team. And then I got a contractor. This particular contractor at the time was perfect. They had just come from Zoopla, so they understood our business model. He had done it 1,000,001 times. He was an accountant himself as well, which sometimes when you get these contractors, they're either functional developers, so they mainly know on the computer side, or they're an accountant that's kind of implemented in NetSuite in a few businesses. But this particular person kind of knew both. So I took that advice on, and it was probably the best decision. One of the best decisions that we did. So we took us 3-4 months to implement, and I think we started in April. We went live in August, I believe. And yeah, having that contractor, having someone there who kind of just knew the language, knew the lingo, knew when to push the third-party implementers as well, knew when they were trying to have me on, or when they were trying to save a little bit of money, or et cetera, et cetera. So having that person who kind of was just on our side was money well spent, in my opinion.
Aaron, where did you say you found the contractors? Was it through NetSuite's recommended partner list, or was it through personal recommendations? So
interestingly, so the implementers called Sansa, and there are other implementers out there. Yeah. But Sansa's group company actually has a recruitment firm who specifically recruits into companies who were implementing NetSuite as well.
Smart.
And we'll get onto Cambino as well, because there's a link there. Okay. So they were able to give me these people. So yeah, I kind of that's how I found him. In terms of, I think I quickly glanced at how much did NetSuite cost. So what I did, a 3-year term, I think it was just under £100,000, which includes the actual NetSuite system itself, the software plus the implementation cost. So
Okay.
so the implementation cost, was about, I want to say, that's top of my head now. I want to say 30 or 40. Could be a bit less. Could be a bit less. No, it was less. I think it was about 25. I think it was about 25K. Yeah, I want to say it's 25K. And
this implementation side. So you mentioned 3 to 4 months. Is this going to change depending on the complexity, obviously, of the actual implementation? Just to give maybe the audience an idea of, how complex was your implementation? What things would they need to factor in there?
Yeah, I think, as I said, because our business model was very simple. Everything was in the UK. We had one sub. Because one thing to know is that if you are using Xero, it is very difficult. Not difficult. It's not straightforward to pull out the reports in the way that NetSuite wants for it to be uploaded into NetSuite. So there was a lot of manual work that had to be done on our part in order for it to be uploaded correctly. Okay. So that's one thing to know, because, and a lot of the reason for this, one of the main reasons is that NetSuite has like a kind of dynamic kind of chart where it has different levels, so you can drill down into various different levels on your, whereas Xero is fairly flat, so you don't have departments, you don't have subcategories, etc., etc. You can't drill it down in that way at the time. I'm not sure if it's changed. I don't think it has changed now, but at the time you couldn't do that. So with NetSuite, you had to kind of tag categories to subcategories to etc., which at the time felt very time consuming. But now, say for example, now we have our lending department, and within our lending department we have 2 separate capital markets deals. So as I said, we have our buy-to-let deal and we have our residential deal. We can now kind of extrapolate a P&L specifically for the residential deal or residential department, and know the P&L costing, and we can tag everything, and we can push it to Looker or whatever it might not. So we can get a lot of granularity. So just in case an investor said, "Tell me what is your kind of profit and loss or for this particular deal," then we're able to kind of extract that without having to produce a pro forma P&L. So, and one other thing to note as well with NetSuite is what they can do is that instead of paying upfront for the NetSuite software piece, we're able to go through, so NetSuite has their own kind of finance company, which they do through Bank of America. And you're able to, so what I did is that I pushed the first payment out by 6 months. And then we pay quarterly. Now there is a finance cost to that. I think it was, at the time, was under 6%, I believe. You can negotiate on the finance cost, by the way, as well. To be fair, you can negotiate on everything. Everything's up to you. That's just in life.
That's very, very true. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Don't ask, you don't get. So yeah, so that's kind of a good thing to know about NetSuite in terms of costings and stuff like that.
So thank you very much for that. So we're really starting right at the heart of kind of like this tool stack with the ERP side of things, and then we'll go into some of the other tools. There's so many. Firstly, thanks to everyone in the audience, because there's so many great questions here. I really appreciate the engagement. So I think there was a question here from Powell. Can you share your thoughts on the change management within your accounting team, switching from old tools to NetSuite? I think that's a great question, because it's kind of like it's the qualitative side of it. Right? How do you go? You touched on a little bit there in terms of, okay, NetSuite's got more complexity, so there is for some people who aren't necessarily in the team, maybe that feels like adding more things on. Did you have much resistance, or did you have to sell the actual implementation internally? How did that work?
Yes, it's a great question actually, because I'm very lucky that I have a COO who kind of trusts my judgment, and it's not a small cost, right? It's a kind of a big cost, which is why I was kind of pushing, pushing to, number one, like delay payments and push it out, and even pay a little bit of a finance cost to help with our cash flow, because at the time we were just post Series B. But the way I sold it was the fact that, look, we are, and to be fair to myself, I was absolutely right. There was no guarantee I would be right, but I'm happy that I was right. But we are going to be, we're going to be this company that has these lending, especially the residential, the kind of lending bit of Habito, which is what's really transforming the company. We're going to have these kind of capital markets still. So essentially what Habito does is that we are a lending platform. So we don't hold the mortgages on our balance sheet. It goes to an SPV. So what we did, and I might as well touch on Origin. So Origin is our loan origination software. So that is a bespoke software that was created by our devs. And so all of the underwriting, all of the mortgage policy, everything that a bank would do, we created from scratch, where we can offer a loan or a mortgage offer in under a week from start to finish. And so all of that, and so because we've kind of built this platform, this origination platform, it means then that we can partner with either institutional investors who don't want FCA permissions to lend to residential customers, or we can partner with maybe big banks where their kind of software piece is not necessarily up to scratch, and we can white label our software for them. So there's various different kind of things that we could possibly do, and so it meant that actually we're going to grow quite a bit, right? And Xero is not going to be able to handle that just on that bit of the business alone. Not forget about other things that we may do. So that's the kind of way I sold it to the business. I was like, well, if this is where we want to go, and this is the kind of transformation that we want as a business, then actually this is going to form quite a large revenue stream of our business. Then we need to have a robust accounting ERP system that's going to be able to handle that, because investors are going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to ask a lot of things out of that system. We're going to have to be able to pull data out fairly quickly, fairly easily, without having to fill it about Google Sheets and Excel, and and also one thing to note is that as we're getting bigger, there needs to be a lot more cost control. So one of the things that I brought in with NetSuite is the PO system. So NetSuite has its own PO system. It's not the best looking, but it's very simple to use. We did alter it, so we paid a little bit more to kind of change it to our how we wanted the approval matrix to work and how we wanted it to look and feel. And once we did that, the terms of kind of the cost control was absolutely. Now that's a different question. That's a kind of a different conversation itself. Is how do you manage change? How do you do the change management for POs? Simple answer is continually repeating yourself. and also just so we did things like, we had a transition period in terms of invoices with PO numbers, and then it came to the end of the transition period. It was, we are not paying invoices unless there's a PO number. And then we had the backing of our of my COO and the CEO, doing a number of all hands, doing a number of workshops, and just continuously being on hand to help people with the PO, to the point where we are now, where everyone knows in the business to raise a PO.
This is a great point, I think, from any tool stack, and it's like a recurring theme, is which tool is being used by which stakeholders within the company. NetSuite focusing on accounting or an ERP system. In this scenario with the PO site, it's not just going to be used by finance and accounting people, and that's going to be similar with different types of tools. So it's a definite consideration. How can you get buy-in from the end users, as well as the the key people that are going to get the value at the end of the day out of the actual system.
Yeah.
So maybe changing gears slightly, looking at the overall stack that we've got here. So NetSuite is obviously clearly at the heart, and I imagine we're probably going to have quite a few questions coming back to NetSuite throughout this conversation. Starting from the heart there, how do you then start thinking about building out your other stack, and maybe thinking about, again, positioning these different tools in what teams are they going to be interacting with, and what stakeholders they're going to be used by? How do you start building that out? And particularly what's interesting, I think, I've known you for a couple of years now, and I've seen your business transform over that time as well. I imagine it's over 100 people in this audience. there's going to be people at different stages, different sizes, different goals. How are you putting this tool stack in the context of the company that you were at the time and what you're growing to?
Yeah, I think like, so there were a few tools that kind of came along with us. So Spendesk was one of them. So and I think, without being too biased, I think the good thing about we were using another tool, which I remain nameless, but we were using
you could 100% talk about all of the Spendesk the Spendesk players in the market. There's no bias in CFO Connect.
so Alfie managed to convince me to jilt Clio and trial Spendesk. So we trial Spendesk, and I think one of the good things about Spendesk, actually, which is also a good thing about Lattice, actually, is the Slack integration. So like, my boss absolutely loves Slack. That's a good Slack integration. He absolutely loves it. And so, but also with that is that everyone that has used Spendesk has just got it, has just understood how to use it. Maybe a bit more conversation around how to use the expense management bit, but when I mean a bit more conversation, I mean like a 2-minute conversation. But every other bit, like how to raise a virtual card, blah blah blah, it's just people have just got it. So that just makes life a lot easier when people when your CTO is come back and saying, this is a really cool piece of kit, thanks for adding it. And what that does for us, then it means then that we the finance team is not wasting time trying to explain how things work and helping people, because they just get it. But also it meant that, again, because we're able to kind of control the approval system and add various different layers and all of the good financial controls that a good finance person likes, it's all there. It's just another layer of, and how we use Spendesk, I should probably explain how we use Spendesk is, and we just basically say anything that can't be done via an invoice. So you can't raise a PO, just use Spendesk, and that's kind of how we explain it, and people just kind of get on, and that's how we. So that came along with Netsuite, which still works pretty well. I will say, I'm being completely constructive. There isn't a native Spendesk to Netsuite integration as of yet. I have been told that they are working on one currently, and we are in a beta program. But just be warned, if you're Xero users, if you're used to the beautiful integration between Spendesk and Xero, it's not there at the moment. We have to use our CSV uploads. However, Spendesk did help with our CSV upload template and making sure that all worked nicely. So yeah, just to be completely transparent. Then the next thing, just kind of looking at Cambina. So Cambina was something that is a sister company of Sansa. To be fair, completely separate.
How do you spell Sansa, Aaron?
SANSA.
Okay.
And what Cambina does, so interestingly, Cambina is a AI accounts payable tool, and they first developed it. They first developed it for systems of accountants, which is the recruiters. So these guys came together, developed it for them, and then they came to us. So we were their first corporate customer. So we obviously got a great deal. So essentially how it worked is that the tool sits on top of our finance inbox. So all of our invoices come to a finance inbox, and all the invoices comes into Cambina. It's then able to read. So it's not OCR technology. It's actually proper AI technology. It's able to read the invoice. It codes everything up, including VAT, taxes, whatever it might be. Codes it to the right expense codes. And then it will pushes it to Netsuite, and you have the option either to stop it so it can be checked and approved, or it can just go straight and post to your P&L or balance sheet. And over time, it gets better. It gives you like a kind of a percentage of, how confident it is, blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, that has, in terms of for an assistant accountant, has saved so much time. It's that it can't be. Our finance team at the time was 3 people, and we were getting hundreds and hundreds of invoices a week. So now all of a sudden she's no longer having to code all these invoices. It's just being coded for her. So she's just rattling through. And then what we're also going to be doing, what they've also developed as well, which we're going to implement in June, is bank recs, and that's going to be a game changer. So I can't necessarily talk on how good it is because we haven't done it yet, but from the demo and from what they've worked on in their own company, once we can get bank recs kind of automated or semi-automated at least, then that's going to be pretty cool. And that will save a lot of time. And our assistant accountant can do more higher value stuff.
I just one Aaron, bank recs.
No, it's still under the Cambina.ai.
Okay, gotcha.
It's still the same company. It's still the same company. So then the next piece is Solution 7. So that is the reporting software which links into Excel, and essentially it just allows a direct link between Excel and NetSuite, and it means that we can we do the whole of our management accounts in Excel, live NetSuite data, and we're able to chop and swap in, cut and dice, and this person wants a report this way. So essentially we do departmental reports for each department, and as I was saying, you can even do segmental reporting as well, and that's with live NetSuite data. And then we normally just kind of change it into Google Sheets and do it that way. A kind of a good segue, I think Solution 7 is pretty self-explanatory. A good segue is now NetSuite can also link with Looker, and what we use a tool called Fivetran, which is recommended by Looker, and that helps link NetSuite to Looker. And what that means then is that, so for us, Looker is, as I'm sure people have heard of Looker before. I know Spendes use it. I can tell by the reports. It is for us in terms of a business. That is kind of the central place where we get data from. The whole business uses it, from mortgage brokers tracking how many submissions they've done, to data guys, to marketing tracking their CAC, to risk tracking, how many in terms of like risk we have, kind of compliance policy and kind of KPIs on our brokers. To that, the whole business uses it in some guise. So basically, all of our data goes into Looker. The only data that didn't go into Looker was live accounting data. So now we're literally in the moment of pushing that through, and what we plan to do is that we're now going to build out reports. So at the moment we have our P&L meetings with departments using Google Sheets, as I said. But what we're planning to do is that we're going to, instead of using Google Sheets, we're going to have these P&L meetings using Looker. So they're going to have live NetSuite data with income, P&L data, expenses, etc., on Looker, and they're able to access, and then we'll also be able to access how much budget they have left over the month, because it'll be continuously updated instead of having to wait until the end of the month. So, and obviously finance uses Looker for non-financial stuff as well, all of our kind of non-financial KPIs. So that's how we use, Looker.
So a couple of questions, maybe. There's a few questions in the chat, and just maybe to summarize. So NetSuite is really that home of the single source of truth. It's got all your data in there, but Looker is the way that you're presenting that to everyone that's outside of finance as well as inside. But it's really the visual aspect into that data of the company, right? Yeah,
I think that's what we want it to become. So that Solution 7 is great for like really hardcore financial reporting, but Looker is really good if I'm talking, as you said, to people outside of kind of maybe not necessarily financially literate, or just because it's so pervasive in the business. It's just probably easier to send it via a look instead of a Google sheet, right? And we have the options of both.
And this is, outside of just the pure tool stack. I mean, in terms of being like a strategic partner, one of the hardest jobs is obviously communicating complex information in a way that's understood by the person you're actually speaking to. And
Exactly.
we, like you say, we use Looker internally also in Spendesk. And it is a great tool. It really does help facilitate those conversations. There's a couple of questions in here that maybe some quick fire ones before we go too far into the other stacks. There was one quick question, I think it was around the size of the team. So Veronica here, how big was your accounting finance team when you implemented NetSuite? And then how you scaled that team as you added into your tech stack?
So when we implemented NetSuite, there was me, a finance manager, and an account assistant, and then we had the contractor. So we had a NetSuite contractor for about 7 or 8 months.
Okay.
Now we don't have one, and my account assistant left, and we replaced her with an assistant accountant who has experience in NetSuite. But also, what we did is, which is much cheaper than getting so if I had my time again, what I would have done in integration is I would have had a integration specialist for NetSuite working on for us for maybe 3 months. So like a month after the integration is done. Then I would have taken out a contract with Sansa, which is what we have now. So which is a support contract with Sansa that gives you X amount of consultancy days plus first and second line support. That way, that is much cheaper than having a contractor maybe for like 6 or 7 months, because there's always going to be certain niggles and certain things that you're going to want to do in NetSuite in terms of like changing stuff and integrating stuff. Kind of having that is just way cheaper. I think our support contract for Sansa is like under £20,000 for the whole year.
Oh, okay.
Which is way cheaper than hiring a contractor.
Yeah, that's super interesting. There's another question here I think is kind of relevant to what you're saying. It was around the data side. So I think the question was, did you need a data team to set up Solution 7? I think this is like a super interesting question throughout the whole kind of tool stack, especially as you're talking about data visualization and Looker. Do you have a data team, and in what propensity do they interact with these tools and are leveraged?
Yeah, so we have a data science, we have a data science and data analytics team. So they are the owners essentially now of Looker. That team has grown since I've been there. So before, it was kind of one person who was head of data science. Now we have 1, 2, 3, I want to say 4 people who we kind of merged data science and data analytics together. In terms of direct question to Solution 7, no, we did not have to get any data science people to help us integrate it. We had a call with Solution 7. I think we had maybe 2 demonstrations with them. And then because what Solution 7 does, it uses Excel formulas, as well as kind of really neat tab tasks that you can just kind of drop in balance sheet items or P&L items, and then kind of once it's built. It's not going to go anywhere. You can just keep on refreshing it. So it doesn't require data science support at all. Actually, I think if I can do it, then you definitely can do it.
There's a great question from Aman here. Aaron, question around some of these third-party integrations. Obviously, today we talked a lot about tool stacks, and I think the third-party side is it's super interesting. To get this all in place. This question is great. Clearly, some of these have access to fairly sensitive financial information for private companies. And additionally, some of these companies, example, Causal, which we haven't yet spoke about, but we'll go into shortly, are startups themselves. Did you face any internal challenges around 1, data privacy, and 2, contingency if any of these partners go down? Great question.
Yeah. So kind of with kind of data privacy, we have a fairly robust, as you can imagine, risk and compliance team. We're FCA regulated, and so it is very important that there is some form of kind of, as you said, segregation of data, or if not, NDA, non-disclosures, and how kind of the data stack works. So we didn't have any pushback from a data privacy point of view. Because the data itself is pretty self. So I think the way they looked at it is that as long as data is not being uploaded back onto kind of like causal servers, or if it is, it's kind of self-contained, and we can, and or we kind of, they've signed NDAs, and the kind of data team is fairly happy with where that data is going, and our risk team is kind of happy with where that data is sitting. Then we didn't have issue with that. Like a good example of this actually is when we're talking about Stripe and Stripe payments. We use Stripe to not only take kind of payments from our customers and pushing that into NetSuite, but also we want to use Stripe can also, with its kind of metadata, you can also push other data like name and address and stuff like that, which is sensitive as well. So there was kind of a question around actually how comfortable do we feel that kind of we're pushing this amount of data through Stripe to go through NetSuite. And I think that's really and there's no clear-cut answer. It's kind of really kind of a toss-up in between of whether that data is going back to Stripe, which is not. Is it going through? And we use Trader.io, which is another connector to connect Stripe to NetSuite, because, and this is probably useful, Suite. So there is, so Stripe have their own. Well, Stripe bought a company called Suite Connect, which directly connects Stripe to NetSuite. But that is like you're paying whatever £5,000 a month for that, whereas Tray, which we already used anyway, was like, I don't know, I think we paid maybe £3,000 a quarter. So it did for us. It just didn't make sense for us to use Suite Connect, so we used Tray instead, and that pushes that metadata from our kind of internal database through Stripe to NetSuite. So we were fairly comfortable that we were only going to push through the minimal amount of data that we need so that NetSuite itself can set up a customer, create debtors, blah, blah, blah. And the plan is going forward is that we will, once we're allowed to get on the product roadmap, then it will be done internally, that kind of integration. But I mean, it's a great question. So it is something that we regularly talk about in our group risk committees and things like that. But at the moment, there was no risk adjusted approach. Exactly. Yeah, there was no pushback because the company itself has a number of integrations with various different things around the business, and so there's kind of fairly robust kind of risk framework of how we deal with that.
So we've got about 17 minutes left on the on this conversation. So what would you say if we prioritize some of this is a question for the audience as well as for Aaron. If you want to prioritize some of your questions, feel free to put in the chat or in the actual questions tab. Which tools do you want to talk about more? Which kind of subjects? And we'll make sure we cover them as much as possible. On the remaining items in this stack, Aaron, that we haven't yet spoke about, which would you say are the most important or game changers for you?
I think we talked. I think so. I know you're going to say FP&A coverage. So Causal, I think I put Causal. I picked Causal. We put Causal on there. So at the moment, it's a bit cheeky because it's actually being integrated right now. So we haven't used it yet. But it's still worth talking about, right? Because we're going through the integration. So the reason why. There are other FP&A tools that the big ones like come out of my mind. Why is it slipping out of my mind now? If someone can help me with the FP&A tools. So there's two big FP&A tools that we did look at a couple of years ago. Yeah, right. Anaplan. And there's another one as well. Which NetSuite use. Adaptive Insights. Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah. I've seen quite a lot of Adaptive Insights in the US since I've been here as well, actually.
Exactly. So Adaptive Insights I've used. I went and trialed Adaptive Insights. It's a great piece of kit. Workday, that is a great piece of kit. But it's really expensive for our size. Right? Like when I remember, I think it's almost the same price, or maybe a little bit cheaper as NetSuite itself. And I was just like, well, for our size and what we're doing, it just didn't feel right. And it was the same again with Anaplan when I spoke to I spoke to someone who worked at another startup. They really love it, but again, the pricing wasn't what we were willing to spend. And my COO used to work at another startup. When they kind of looked at these softwares as well, and he was like, "Well, I'm not really sure it's worth it." And so we kind of benched it. So then we had a new FP&A lead come in, and we looked at, and he wanted to get FP&A software. So I was like, "Cool, let's get this going." And we looked at Causal, and I think one of the main reasons why we kind of liked Causal is, number one, the way you can build your model using very, very simple formulas within the software itself. Also, how you can easily just download it into Google Sheet and Excel sheet. Also, how it integrates with Looker kind of backend data as well. Also, how it kind of integrates with Netsuite as well. And also, the price was good because they're a startup. You've probably seen that they've just raised their seed round. So we're one of their first startup customers. And so the price was good, and also they were just willing to kind of adapt certain things to how we want it. And so based on all of those things, we just thought, well, there's no harm in kind of using it for the price, everything considered.
Yeah, and that's a good point with the startups. I think you can get some really good relationships with them because your business is more important to them than the large companies. So you can have more of a sway on product roadmap. There's more of a communication with the teams. We've seen that with other people in these tools, particularly, saying the similar things. Yeah. So let's say if we take, I studied accounting and finance, but I'm definitely not an accountant or in the finance team. But it's maybe for other people. When you look at Looker and Causal, we look at data visualization and then FP&A software. How would you, briefly explain the value difference between looking at a data visualization tool and an FP&A software in the stack? What's the difference in the? Yeah,
good question. So Causal basically means you can build your entire business model without using Excel, in its most simplest basic terms.
Okay.
The whole stack: cash flow, P&L, balance sheet, everything. You can do visualization with it as well, but it's not going to be as powerful as Looker, because if anyone's used Looker before, Tableau, then you know exactly what I mean. It won't be as powerful. Whereas Looker, you are able to. I mean, I'll give you the best one as an example. Like today, I was looking at. I want to know my August submission cohort on how long it took for it to complete in August.
Okay.
which sounds complicated, and it is. Causal, I wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, meaning that I can drill down to the most nitty gritty and add extra kind of filters and other kind of questions. Whereas that's not the point of Causal. Like Causal literally is kind of cash flow management and building my model, which I can send out to investors as well as using it internally here as well.
So we've spoken at the heart, we've got the ERP, we've got your expense and your spend management tools and the PO and the invoicing kind of side. So we've got an AR, accounts receivable on one side, we've got the accounts payable on the other. We've got FP&A tools, reporting, data visualization, and obviously at the heart, having the enriched data. We've got your proprietary tools there on the loan side. So this is what your stack currently looks like today. Do you see this changing or evolving over the next 12 to 18 months? And perhaps what are some of the things that you're thinking about now for the future?
I think, if I'm honest with you, the only thing that I can think that's going to change majorly is just how we. So one of the things that we've been working on in NetSuite is automatic accruals. Meaning that once you probably won't mean anything to you, Alfie, but so at the moment with our POs, we accrue based on outstanding POs. But what this will do is that once someone raises a PO at the end of the month, it will automatically accrue if there's no bill associated with it, and then it will automatically release the month after. That will save a day or half a day's worth of work to be done. Again, we're looking at more integration with Stripe. And I think actually, if I'm honest, that is, unless something else changes in the business, that's all I really can see is more tightening the integration with the existing tools that we have, rather than adding any at the moment. Anything kind of can happen.
This has been super interesting.
Actually, one thing I do want to mention. So actually, just Kim. I don't know if we looked at Power BI versus Looker, because my COO integrated Looker fairly early on in the business. So when I came, Looker was there. Just to answer that question. But one thing I do want to mention was Lattice. And I know that's a kind of a people management HR software. But one of the good things about Lattice is, again, it has really good Slack integration, but also within Lattice, because I know sometimes CFOs kind of double up as chief operating officers as well, is that we use OKRs in our business as well, and we obviously do our one-to-ones. And within Lattice, you can house your OKRs across the whole business, and also with the one-to-one system as well. You can, instead of using Google Docs to make notes on all of your one-to-ones you have, actually you can do that within Lattice, and it links into your calendar. So you can have private notes, public notes, you can have tasks that need to be done. So you can literally track all of your one-to-ones that you will ever have. And then also with you can kind of track and manage your OKRs as well. So I thought I'll kind of just mention that off the bat, because in terms of just admin organization, which I'm terrible at, Lattice is definitely making me way more organized in terms of the kind of one-to-ones that I'm having with my direct reports or my bosses. And then eventually what we wanted to do is actually have it for our whole team's one-to-ones, where we can have a lot of these kind of features as well.
Great to hear. So let's do some quick fire questions in the remaining time that we have. So I'm just going through the questions tab, and I'll look through the chat as well. So I think you've answered a lot of the questions that are already here. One of them is, where was it? Okay. Do you use any tools for managing your cap tables and ESOPs in your company? From Julia.
Yes. I think I did put it on this. Maybe I didn't put it on.
This is in the question tab rather than the chat.
Yes, we do. At the moment we use Carter, which is a very popular tool. We are in the process, again, actually you did ask me this question, I forgot. We are in the process of moving over to ShareWorks.
Okay.
And the reason why we're in the process of moving over to ShareWorks, that came as a recommendation, and two reasons. The first reason is currently, and every accountant who's done an audit will understand this in the UK at least, is that every year we have to value our share-based payments or value our options. So at the moment we use a third-party modeler to do that for us. ShareWorks is able to do that within itself. So it means it eliminates the use of having to do that. Secondly, it's a bit more UK focused. So it means that all of our submissions to HMRC can just be downloaded and uploaded straight back up. Whereas Carter was a way more fiddly. I was spending too much time having to amend things, and it was just annoying me. And yeah, ShareWorks is just a bit more UK focused, even though I understand it is an American company. I think Morgan Stanley own it. It's just a bit more UK focused, and I've actually seen it in real time via recommendation from a very similar fintech within our space. So that's what we use. Carter, more US focused, however, still a great tool. I can't say there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It's just more US focused. So if you're a US based company, I would go for Carter personally. But there are other ones out there like CapDesk, etc., etc.
So we'll go for some quick fire questions. So again, thank you firstly so much everyone for posting your questions. We've had super engaged audience today and great questions. So fire them away. We're going to get through as many of these as we can. Quick one there.
There's one from Aman who talks about specific SPV. Does the finance team handle investor reporting for those structures? Question is no, we do not, because we are not the owners of that. But just to kind of take your investor reporting question further, one of the other reasons why we wanted to integrate NetSuite to Looker is that we can build a investor template in Looker for our investor reporting. And it means anytime there is a change it's automatically updated, and we can schedule it to go out at a particular date to the investors, rather than having to kind of constantly update Google Sheets or Excel. So that's another reason why we wanted to get NetSuite data into Looker as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions here. It's just fantastic. Thanks for organising. Thanks very much for coming. Thanks for all your great questions. Listen, so everyone, there's a few questions. Are we recording this? Yes, it's being recorded. Yes, we're going to do a recap. We're going to share all this information with you. We'll share the slide for the tool stack. Aaron, where can people find you, and what's the best way to contact you? Because there's a ton of people here that I can imagine are just waiting to get hold of you and dig into some of that in some more detail. So what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I mean, the best way to reach out for me is email. So it's Aaron, AARON @Habito, HABITO.com, or just search me on LinkedIn. Aaron Townsend on LinkedIn, and I should pop up. So yeah, Aaron Townsend @Habito. But yeah, those are the two. Email's probably the best, because unfortunately for me, I never switch off. Probably like you. So I probably would answer you, or join a CFO Slack.
Yes, there you go, Aaron. So you
get me quick in there.
Join the other 5,000 members in CFO Connect. Get involved with the Slack community as well. For everyone else, thank you so much for joining. Lastly, I guess we've also got the CFO podcast. So if you go on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, you can check out CFO if you haven't actually joined the community, go to cfoconnect.eu. If you're in the EU, if you're in the US, cfoconnect.us. You can join the community, stay up to date with any future events. We are super curious. We love understanding what everybody wants to learn about, what they want to talk about. If you have feedback about this particular conversation, what was good, what was not good, other topics that you'd like to hear about, please do send us all of your feedback. We'd love to hear that, and we will see you next time. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great week.
Cool.
Thanks, Aaron, so much. That was awesome.
All right, thank you. All right.